Photoshop was designed to make it easier for digital photographers to take their photography to the next level. But if it's got you staring at your monitor for hours, then you might need some help. Luckily for you, Alex Lindsay is here, Mr. DV Garage, with some answers to frequently asked questions. Welcome back, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Every Wednesday's Photoshop Day. In fact, I was in the TechTV commissary back there. And, well, commissary is kind of grandiose, where they store the milk. And somebody said, well, when's Alex going to be on? Because I want to watch. I'm using Photoshop, and I'm trying to learn more. This is somebody who works here. People love.
You know, what's funny is that I actually, by having to describe it to you,
you learned.
People send me these questions. You know, I'm getting tons of great questions. And
good.
And people should definitely send them in to us.
Address is?
It's phototips@dvgarage.com. You can find it on the Call for Help website.
Okay.
And I love getting them. And I can't get back to everyone, but it's, you know, I go through them. That's how I figure out what we're going to talk about.
And these are the most asked questions.
Yes, exactly.
So starting with, and I have this question too. Unlocking layers.
Okay.
Because very often when I bring in a photo, the layer is locked.
Exactly. So
I can't do anything with it.
Exactly. Now what's happening is that when you open the photo, the background layer is always locked. So you'll see right.
Well, that's frustrating.
Hold on. Let me pull this layer.
Why do they do that?
Because there's nothing under it. You know, it's the first layer.
It has to be locked because there's nothing else.
Exactly. So what happens is that we haven't defined it in that area yet. So you see this little lock here, and that means you're not going to be able to move it. You know, within the image, you know, I can't
do nothing.
I can't grab it and move it. Now, if I simply see it says
layer is locked,
that's what you get. So now what I can do though is if I just simply grab this layer and make a copy of it and throw this one away. See, now I've defined it as this is a layer sitting over top of a transparency.
Ah.
So now
you can do it.
Now I'm free.
Well, that's good, because intuitively that's what I've done, because that's the only thing I could figure out. I was worried that I was just somehow damaging things.
No.
And you can leave the locked layer, right?
You can leave the locked layer. That's my quickest way of, I forgot to do it. You can also, when you start, you know, when you open when you create new files, you know, you can set this to transparent.
If you have a transparent background, then the layer will not be locked.
I usually actually like it to start off with the background locked, so I don't accidentally grab it.
Yeah.
You know, because you can very quickly grab the wrong thing, you know, and then getting it back sometimes can be.
Good. There you go. That's question number one, and I'm glad they asked it, because that's one I was wanting to know. What's the difference between Photoshop and Elements? This is a little larger question.
Yeah. The big difference is that there's a lot of tools in Photoshop that are really designed for print designers and professionals and people who are making real money doing photo editing.
Right.
The things that for me are really the important things in Photoshop that aren't in Elements are things like you don't have any access to channels. You know, so
we've done a lot of channel shop stuff, so that's very important.
So being able to jump into these channels, copy the channels, work with alpha channels, all of those things.
That might be frustrating.
For me, you know, it's hard to do without.
Right.
The layers are a lot more limited as far as the kind of like layer masks. If I want to create a mask here, these kind of things are much harder. You can do a layer mask for your for some of your adjustment layers and elements, but not. You just simply don't have the same latitude. If we look at something like adjustments, so these are all the adjustments that are sitting in in Photoshop. If I pop over to Elements,
same thing. Okay.
I look at adjustments here.
Nothing.
A little less.
Okay.
You know, and
now most of those you're not going to use. They're high-end things.
If you're just correcting a couple photos or you're doing a couple little touch-ups, Elements is going to be what you need.
Right.
If you really are going to get deep into this and you're really serious about it, then Photoshop is something that is. And the thing to know also is if you have access to I mean, sometimes you can find used copies. I don't know how they do used copies now. But for a while, you used to be able to buy like Photoshop 4 or 5. And
go back in time a little bit.
Even those have a lot more features than Elements.
All right.
But
Elements is for somebody who's just simply editing, retouching photos.
Yeah.
And not doing elaborate compositional
And for the price that they charge for it, it's an amazing package. But if you're really going to get serious about this, and this is something you really love to do, then what you're going to want to do is go ahead and get Photoshop.
One thing I've learned from this is Photoshop is actually worth the money.
Oh, it
seems expensive, but it's so powerful, and you use it so much in so many ways, it actually is worth the money.
And it's one of the few things that's really a standard. So the thing is when you buy it, there are hundreds of plugins for it. There are tons of books, and so there's just a ton of places to support you when you want to get into it.
It's not one of those programs you buy and then don't use. Believe me.
Anyway,
Stamp tool. How do I use the stamp tool without flattening the layers? I don't even know what he's talking about.
Okay. Well, what he's talking about is let's say I have this this layer here, okay? And I've got two layers. I've got my foreground here and my background. Now, if I'm on the foreground and I want to do a clone of this background, let's say over top of part of my foreground, if I select it, now it's going over top of
her face.
Of her face. Now, that's because I have use all layers. If I turn it off, see, now it's going behind her. And that may not be what they want.
So what he's been doing is flattening it
so that he could get everything.
Eliminating the layers. But really, if you just check use all layers, you can, without flattening it.
Exactly. And what's even better is if I turn this on, if I turn on use all layers, I can create a new layer.
And work in that.
So I can, by using all layers, I can select something and be painting over it, for instance, like this.
That's kind of a cool effect.
Yeah. but now it's on a whole new layer which I can turn on and off. So I don't have, by flattening it and then doing cloning over top of that, it's permanent. But by creating, use all layers, it'll look at all the layers that are visible and it'll paint into a new layer, which is a very powerful way to do the process.
Do you pretty much save flattening for the end of the line when you're not going to be doing any more modification?
Most of the time, I try to flatten as little as I can.
Right, because you lose control.
Exactly. Now, eventually, you're going to have to, there's some things that you have to do, and you have to flatten those layers, and there's certain things that you need to do. But I try to avoid it at all costs until the very end.
Well, there's the answer to your question. You check that box.
Use all layers is the key to the operation.
Can I fix lens distortion in Photoshop?
Yes. There's a couple plugins. Now you can try to do it in there are some in CS especially there's some plugins that come with it.
What is lens distortion?
Lens distortion, if you look at this truck,
oh yeah, it's curved.
You see this little you see a little curve across the top of the edge.
Yeah.
That's from especially wide angle
wider
lenses.
lens.
And also lower quality lenses will tend to distort.
Okay.
There are some in Photoshop there are some lens stuff here, but it's not really going to be what you need most of the time.
Because it's kind of hard. You'd have to do it by hand, tweak, till you got it to look right.
There's a couple plugins, and I have links to both of them on the website. The one that I like to kind of play with here is because it's kind of visual. Is
Image
one that's not going to.
For
some reason, it's not. Hold on.
We have to click the layer, or this is a layer issue. You've got.
Let's see here.
You added. Remember, you added that extra.
That
vector thing or whatever.
That.
Okay.
Let's go to here. Let's see if that shouldn't be a problem, but let's try this again.
Now we work with Grasshopper.
Grasshopper. These are some folks from New Zealand of all places.
There you go.
And what this has, these are all the things that can happen to your lens. And so what you can do is I can interactively grab this, and start to. You can see how I can start to bend
you fixed it. You fixed it.
That's the barrel distortion.
That's really cool.
The most common one.
That's pretty. Do it again while they get the full screen. So it really does fix it. It actually eliminates the curvature completely.
I can, and it's just inverting exactly what was happening on the lens. And then, for instance, if you know what your lens is, like once you figure out what this problem is, you can actually save it as a setting and then just come back in and correct it. And what I do is I tend to shoot a picture of a grid or a graph. Graph paper, and then I'll really work it out, and then I know what how that lens is going to react to things.
Oh, that's cool. We have one last question. I don't think we're going to have time to. We have the answer on the web, but maybe just a yes or no. Can you do colorizing as we've done in Photoshop CS with elements?
And it's exactly the same. So the answer is yes. You just put a layer over top and then set it to color in the transfer mode, and then just paint your color in.
So it does have the color transfer mode in Elements. That's one thing that is in Elements. And actually, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that's something you'd want to do with your photos. Well, that's not all, folks. Oh, no. He's done 5. Yes, 5. But we've got 5 more on our website, so be sure to swing by and check it out. Answers to your frequently asked questions at techtv.com/call for help. And send Alex your emails to...
it's phototips.
Phototips.
At dvgarage.com.
At dvgarage.com. Thank you, Alex. Good stuff.